Okay, I think we are live right now. Just trying to see. Seems to be working, hopefully. And I can open up of the information here. Sorry for being a little bit late. I was running a bit late this morning. Okay. Well, I'm figuring stuff out for new people to join. Let me working. Okay, just double checking that everything is working. Okay, so let me jump into some of the information that I wanted to share today. I have some new things that I wanted to discuss. Let's see. Okay, for now. Oh, okay, great. Well, I don't know if you saw the information, I guess, on the stream explanation. I wanted to talk about a class today, a new class from Scrum.org. Some comments that it has received, I've kind of found them funny, so I wanted to address some of those. And because I just attended this class this Monday, I wanted to also share some of the findings, some of the learnings that I had in that. So yeah, this is what we will be doing today. Now, I'm just trying to figure out all of my windows in here and see kind of what's going on. I need to... And I also, by the way, actually passed the test for the certification yesterday, 100%. So, okay. Hi, Andre. So Andre is saying, I checked sample test for backlog management, and it's actually that I learned from Scrum prep course for the PSM2 exam and see no reason to obtain it in addition to PSM2. Oh, I didn't know they have a sample test. So I did the test yesterday, and there were more specific questions related to the models that we have covered in the class. But let me kind of talk without any visual aids. So let me open up real quick what's going on in here so that we have it. How do I do that? Okay, should be working. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, so it's about this class, right? So Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management. I actually didn't know that they have open assessment tests. Kanban, Agile. Which one is that? Practice test. I'm not sure which one you were referring to for the practice test. I'm not sure if they actually have one, but basically this is the what happened? This is the class, and it's kind of similar to the class that we had for the facilitation skills, right? But here we really focus on the product backlog management. Now it's a one-day class, and it is focused more on the skills, new techniques, and tools. And I know it might seem like I'm trying to promote this class, but I probably won't be giving this class anyway. But just to really talk about why we have these classes. And I found it interesting, actually, some of the backlash that was related to that class. I think in general, first of all, I think a lot of people got really mad that, well, a lot or not a lot, some people got really mad that this is just another certification. Oh, we're just kind of selling an extra certification. And I think certification is kind of like a cool thing that we add because people want to have a certification in the end. Like even people who are attending my class, they sometimes want to have like a proof that they have attended the class. And so it's more about that. I think the most important part is the skills that we're learning. So I learned a few things that I actually didn't know in this class. So that was pretty cool. And let me open up a couple of things that I found. So first of all, this is one of the key, let's say, posts that kind of made me chuckle a little bit, let's be honest. And so here, someone's getting really mad, saying, what the F is this? So you mean to tell me the Agile community acts befuddled at how the market cut Agile jobs while shit like this gets pumped out? Sorry, I won't be able to filter that. The industry wants more certification money for non-value producing skills that companies will unsurprisingly never translate to value. And this is kind of an interesting point, right? So let's talk about this certification. Do you need to have 10 million certifications? No, not really. I don't think that it's necessary. But it's cool to have a little badge that says, hey, you passed the class, you went to the class, you learned something new, and you passed the test that shows it. I'm gonna move my camera to another corner because, yeah, there we go. And so in here, for me, yeah, the certification, it's not really about the certification. If you're attending the class, which is the most important part, right? Really in here, it's not the certification. It's not like passing the test. If you're attending the class, then that's the value that you're getting from it. It's not the badge that you're going to get if you pass the certification. And now here, what I find interesting is that I cannot select, but this phrase that kind of says non-value producing skills that companies will unsurprisingly never translate to value. And I find it very weird as a statement. What I find that a lot of product owners are actually not as supported as they should be by the organizations, right? We have lots of Scrum Master training and stuff like that. We have a lot of support on those roles, but when it comes to the training of product owners, like usually they're not even sent to any kind of training, PSPO, CSPO, all of those things, not really as popular. Being able to manage your product backlog is so important because that is where you're able to define whether your team, what they're working on, is actually useful. It actually produces value. So if you have a product owner who knows how to manage the product backlog in the best way, then you as a company are going to benefit from it. And so what we actually covered in here, so if you look at the description that they've given here from the scrum.org poster, right? It says, in this new course, you will learn techniques and methods of effectively manage your product backlog and deliver valuable products. I can't read today, sorry. In this new course, you will learn techniques and methods to effectively manage your product backlog and deliver valuable products to delight stakeholders and customers. So the focus of this is on techniques and methods. And another, I think, important part of this is stakeholder management. So this is one of those parts that is so important for any product owner, right? Being able to manage stakeholder expectations, being able to negotiate, saying no. And I talked a lot about all of these topics in my product owner guide, and because it is one of those important topics. So let me see if I can actually find it and pin it to the chat for you to see. Okay, cool. And so we talked about stakeholder management. We talked about a model that helps you identify where your stakeholder kind of finds themselves, like what kind of influence they have, and how much, like what's at stake for them, really. Like how high are the stakes for them by managing your product not managing, that are related to the success of your product. So it's about influence they have and the stakes that they have in your product. And I found this model so useful, and we kind of looked into it. I wish we actually spent a little bit more time on it in the class, but it was only a one-day class. But just kind of having that model, I feel that this is, for example, something that is missing from the product owner guide that I have. I do talk about stakeholders, identifying different types of stakeholders, but like being able to kind of place your stakeholders in different categories so that you know how to manage them is very important. So once again, why is that a non-value producing skill? I'm not sure, because it is actually product backlog management skill is kind of number one skill of the product owner for a number of reasons, right? The product owner is accountable for the product backlog management, obviously, but more about making it transparent, making sure that everybody understands it, keeping it up to date. So all of these things that are essential to the success of a Scrum team. So how can we say that the product backlog management is a non-value skill? I'm not really sure. DRG Maple has a question. So how do I get experience so I can develop my Scrum or product owner skills, volunteer, paid positions? It's often I say, right, if it's all about practice, obviously, so definitely do focus on that experience. I think transitioning within an organization is the easiest part. Say if you are working in a company, you have some product teams, product owners, right, working with them and kind of working to understand how they do it, maybe shadowing them. That would be the best way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, classes like this can give you a little bit of that practice, like a very minimal amount, but at least it can get you started, right? But in an organization, it's more seeking out other people who can do that, who can help you with that, right? So this person is clearly just wanted to use a lot of swear words to make the post look, like shocking. At least that's my opinion, but because I don't see any other reason to put it there. So you can't make this up. To get your PSPBM or whatever, just don't expect anyone to take you seriously when you add it to the end of your name. Well, first of all, don't add your certifications to the end of your name. If I start adding all of the certifications I have to the end of my name, it's going to be like 3 lines. It makes no sense. I can maybe add PST because I'm a professional Scrum trainer, but even that, don't add those to your name. Anyway, and then we have this person who is kind of resharing this post and says, I totally agree with that. Here's a certificate in managing the literal thing we are trying to avoid having. And I am very confused. Anyone in the audience knows is that a new trend I'm not aware of, that we're trying to stop having product backlogs? Since when? That's something really new. Like, product backlog is the essential artifact in a Scrum team. Since when are we trying to get rid of it? Like, I don't understand. Like, that for me makes absolutely no sense. We're trying to avoid having like, if you don't have a product backlog, it's a problem. Like, you need to have one space. Hello. Now I have a little guest on today's stream. That's the key element of how you're able to define what your team needs to be working on, right? And making sure that they are working on what's important and not just some random stuff, or like, that hippo effect, let me say specifically hippo, as in high importance person opinion, something like that. If you know what hippo stands for exactly, drop it in the chat. But basically, that's the whole point of having product backlog and being able to manage it properly, is that you avoid constantly changing priorities for absolutely no reason. And having stakeholders who are coming in and they're basically changing everything you have in your product backlog. Like, why? So that was one of those posts. Um, and in terms of the comments in here, and so here's another interesting kind of post in here, right? That says, be as vague as possible, might sell more certification, but has almost no value for aspiring product owners and product managers outside the absolute basics. Well, first of all, you do need to start somewhere, basics or not. But at the same time, what do you mean be as vague as possible? It says specifically, learn techniques and methods to effectively manage your product backlog. And there was actually another backlash that says that the name is absolutely stupid and crazy bad and cool, but it's very descriptive. It's not about how we name it. Is it representing what the course is about? Like, people are, and I found this weird because Martin is kind of a product guy, right? And I find it weird that he would like to kind of put that negative attention to it. At the same time, he's saying, hey, here's to hoping the course is great. It is. But I mean, great name. There are many bad names for stuff. At least this one is descriptive, right? So not sure why kind of people didn't like the name. And then another point was actually, I think that is coming from scrum.org more specifically, that says, look, we wanted the course to be named in such a way that it doesn't pose any questions about what this course is about. And same as we have the facilitation skills class, right? So in the facilitation skills class, we clearly are teaching facilitation skills. And now, if we talk about why is it so long, well, you take the product backlog management, right? So that's the key thing. Professional Scrum is just like a trademark name. Like, you cannot remove professional Scrum out of it, right? It's part of scrum.org. So those were some of the things in here. Yeah, so here, like Alex is saying, I wonder how many people of the people in this thread has actually read the course goals and content, right? Because people are saying, oh, it's so vague, we don't understand what it is. But we actually have very clearly defined learning objectives, apply practical techniques to create, refine, and order the product backlog. We touch on it in the professional Scrum product owner class, right? Oh, just realized that my camera is blocking the view a little bit, but that's okay. To the side, there you go. So applying techniques to refine and order the product backlog. Obviously, identify and effectively communicate with stakeholders. As I mentioned, capture stakeholders' needs on a product backlog, find better ways to make the product backlog more transparent, and use empiricism as a competitive advantage, really more about planning, forecasting, and stuff like that. So yeah, very good point from Alex in here, kind of saying, hey, did you read the learning objectives? By the way, guys, if you are in here, definitely jump in with any questions you might have. I am here to also answer questions, not just kind of rant about this, but I just wanted to share some of those things. Oh, you might be hearing that. Let me close the door. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so as Daniel saying, some harsh and bully language to gain social media momentum. Not brave at all, instead sad. Very good point Daniel here is making about that. As I said, it's kind of like jarring notes in there for just make it sound like controversial or something, you know? And then the only point that could be worth mentioning is trying to avoid a product backlog at all. Really? In what galaxy? Trying not to create not so bad product backlog would be a plus for many teams. Maybe this training might help even a little do a better one. Yeah. So some good things in there. So what we covered in this class, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, right? And let me pull up some of the information on it. While we're here, let me find it off screen. Yeah, so basically some of the information that we have on and you cover in this class, what I, for example, found when we were in the when I attended the professional Scrum facilitation skills, it is a mouthful, but you know, is we were focusing a lot on very, very practical aspects of the skill, right? So, and I think that that's kind of what we're missing, right? We have a lot of the classes, PSM1, PSM2, PSPO, all of those things, obviously on Scrum Alliance side as well. And a lot of them are very focused on kind of the theoretical knowledge, right? They're telling you, hey, here's the ideal, here's how it is supposed to look like. But when you are starting working with a team in an organization, you don't have that ideal scenario, right? So you're kind of just have this kind of a challenging situation with a lot of Scrum butts. And when you start working with a team, it might be not very clear. Okay, I learned Scrum, I passed my certification, but how, like, what do I do now? Right? And that I think is what is missing. And so that's why we are introducing these classes. Really, that's the whole point. Um, so, so what have we covered in the class? So I talked about different ways and techniques of how to organize your product backlog. We talked a bit about how to write user stories or product backlog items. And obviously, everybody knows about the user story types. Like as a user, I want to do something so that I can gain value, right? So that is a very known user story format. We talked about some other ones that may be helpful in other situations. We had a really good one that I really liked in there, and obviously got a chance to practice it a little bit. Oh yeah, we talked a lot about customers, right? Kind of how to know your customer. We talked about different techniques that you can use to help you understand your customer, because in the end, what is the product backlog? Well, it is the representation of the needs of your customers, users, stakeholders, and you need to understand them. That is an important part. We started the class talking about that, and I think it is something we cover in PSPO. But if you go back to, say, the Scrum Guide, say you only read the Scrum Guide, it is not as clear. It's like not giving you that information on how to actually manage the product backlog effectively, right? And so in here, that all comes back to the customer. If you look, for example, into the product owner guide that I have put out there, just wanted to open it up to show you a few things in there. Okay, where is it? Yeah. Okay. So just to share what I have. Okay, perfect. Just let me move so what did I say? Yeah, so just kind of looking at when I was writing the product owner guide, I was really thinking about what would be the most essential skills and topics that a product owner would need to be successful, right? And so in here, well, we talked about product owner's project, blah, blah, blah. And then we talk about the skills that a product owner needs. And I'm going to show you some of those skills, what they are include. But if we kind of talk about the other topics that I cover here, well, one of them is product definition. What's your product, right? I talk about what's the customer journey like? Who is the customer? Thinking about the vision, all of those topics that are not necessarily described in the Scrum Guide, but they're essential. So if you are a product owner, you do need to know what your product vision is. You do need to know what your product is about, what kind of problems it is trying to solve. Who is your customer? You need to have an idea of the persona of your customer. What do they want? What are they fear? All of those things, right? And what is their customer journey? How does it look like for them to use your product? So all of those things that are not necessarily explained in the Scrum Guide, but are essential. So we talked a bit about that in the class. And so if we look into what I have in here, in the product owner guide, right? I talk about some of the different types of skills. I talk about business acumen, like kind of talking about, hey, as a product owner, you need to know what your business is. That can come back to business goals, and that will obviously trickle down to the product goals. I talk about product definition, once again, knowledge of the product itself, but also customer understanding. So we talk about all of these things as well. Like we covered a bit about the customer's personas in the class, for example. So we talk about the most important topics that are related to the product owner role, even though the class itself is called Product Backlog Management Skills. Who is really accountable for that? Well, the product owner. So that's why it's so related to also the guide, the product owner guide that I have. So we talk about the customer and define the customer. Yes, so we talked about the stakeholders, and I think this is one of those topics that is not exactly shared as, not thought about as much. And so we had a few exercises. I'm not going to show you the model that we had here, obviously. You should go to the class to check it out. But one of the things I actually did, when I was working with one of the companies a couple of years back, we were organizing a product owner community. And what we did, one of the first things that I actually organized and facilitated was related to the stakeholders. So I also want to show it to you. I always share some new stuff with you while we are here. Let me just copy a few things that we had. Okay. Yeah, and once again, don't feel free to ask questions if you have any questions, whether about something that I'm talking about right now or just in general about something else. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, yeah, so just a few materials that I had used, right? So talking about the product owner community of practice that we had, one of the first exercises I facilitated was related to stakeholders, right? And so it is essential to know who your stakeholders are. And interestingly enough, in that community of practice, a lot of people who were there, they actually didn't know exactly who their stakeholders were. If you're thinking about, well, am I offline? I see the message that says that I'm offline. Hopefully I'm not. Okay, stream dropped. Sorry about that. Let me reiterate. Yeah. So basically, think about this. If you have a sprint review, right? So you are planning for your sprint review. Usually already we're having trouble often to just have someone like any kind of stakeholders in there. Now, if you don't even know who your stakeholders really are, you probably will not be inviting the right people into your sprint reviews, and so they will stop coming or they will not be interested in attending in the first place, and you're not going to get any valuable feedback during the sprint review. And so that is why you actually need to know who your stakeholders are so that you can really get their right input, right? The right feedback. For that, you need to start with identifying the stakeholders. So during the class, we talked about a different way of looking at the stakeholders. So this is just one of the models, or not really models, like ways to look at stakeholders, right? Like here, I'm talking about if you don't identify the critical stakeholders, they will find you. And usually when they find you, when it's a bit too late and they're already not happy, like you don't want to wait until that moment. You want to prevent that from happening. You want to involve them as early as possible. So, and then we're saying the stakeholders are the ones that will determine the success or failure of your products through many different things, right? It can be through budgeting. Are they giving you the budget that you actually need? Are they promoting what your team is doing or your product in the right way? And then if there is any politics involved, that gets a bit difficult as well, is that they probably would be quick to drop a product if it is not aligning with their goals. So you want to make sure that you know their expectations, you know their goals, and whatever you're building, whatever you're doing is aligned with those expectations. And so here is the little model of who are your stakeholders. Make sure that you actually see it on the screen. Yeah. Being pedantic anyway. Who are your stakeholders? So users will directly use your product, right? We are not even talking about just stakeholders within your company, right? It's not just the stakeholders who are like coming to your meetings or who are telling you, giving you new requests every day. There are many other ways, types of stakeholders, right? So users, people who will be using your product, that's even more specific to customers, right? Influencers have the ability to change the direction of your product. They might not be actually directly using your product or getting any value from your product, but they have the influence, like they have the power basically, and you need to know how to involve them in such a way that they are not damaging the success of your product, right? Definitely don't want them to kind of get to a point where they feel like they have to change something in your product. And usually these people would have a lot of power in the organization as well. Right? Governance, they're interested in how things are managed. So this can be stakeholders who are maybe audit, compliance, change management teams, all of those things, right? People who once again might not be directly using your product or getting value from your product, but internally they care about how your product is being done and being built. And then providers, anyone else who provides resources to your product. It can be other teams. If you have taken people from other teams who are assigned to your product, things like that. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're aligned with them. It can be teams who are providing some resources like networking, environments, all of those stuff to your product, to your team in order to build it. So we talked about stakeholders, right? So that was another topic that we covered in the class. And we looked into a different model that I find very, very good. Don't think it has a name actually. But yeah, so we also were able to kind of walk through that model as well a little bit too. We had some really nice case studies in there, really cool ones, and obviously looking at those case studies from the point of view of a product owner. And then we had a lot of practice of creating a product backlog. So we actually had like a product selected, a product goal that we were trying to achieve, or wanted to achieve in the sense of the class. And we were creating product backlog items, right? We're writing down what are some of the features or non-functional requirements that we want to accomplish in order to achieve the goal. So that was really nice. It was an opportunity to test out your skills and try something new. We talked about ordering and slicing and splitting and all of these things, right? As always, one of the things that we have in Scrum is the concept of ready, not the definition of ready, but the concept of ready that says that product backlog items need to be small enough to be taken into the sprint so that the team feels they're able to accomplish it within the sprint. And so if our product backlog items are too big, they are too complex, maybe they don't have as much detail as they should have, then we probably need to split them, right? Split, slice, do something to make sure that they are small enough to be taken into account. And we talked a bit about that, about splitting user stories, kind of, right? And I am actually talking about that in my writing user stories guide, talking about some techniques. And I wanted just to show you a couple. Okay, I need to go and find it again. Just a couple that I generally use. One of them is called Spider. We're talking about splitting user stories, right? Making them taking a big chunk of work and splitting it into smaller ones. Let me find that for you. Yeah, so that's splitting. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Yeah, so Spider, that comes from Mike Cohen, who is the creator of the Mountain Goat software. And that's kind of a way to split user stories. But another concept we talked about was slicing, and that was more about kind of removing things out of your list. And that comes back to like you can use user story mapping, for example, when you figure out all of the potential things that you may want to build, like potential features, and then decide, okay, which ones can we drop? Like which ones are must-haves and which ones are not as valuable. And during the class, we looked at another great model that helped that was able to help the team and the product owner to identify where to put those items and to decide whether some of them should be worked on or not. Petit Kim, I think there is a question there. What skills do you need to focus on? What skills do I need to focus on my Scrum Master journey? That's a very wide question. There are a lot. I actually do have a few videos on the skills for a Scrum Master. But in short, that would be coaching, mentoring, facilitation, teaching. Making sure that you know Scrum, making sure that you have good understanding of different agile practices. Maybe delve a little bit into the agile metrics. And of course, I do have the Scrum Master Startup Guide where I cover a lot of that information. So if you're interested, but I do have lots of videos on my channel. If you just kind of look for Scrum Master skills on my channel, you should be able to find some. And I think in a playlist that is called Becoming a Scrum Master on my channel, you would be able to find that as well. I want to open up to see in my Scrum Master Startup Guide what we have. I feel like about the maturity, where Scrum Master and Scrum team meet. Okay, sprint schedule, Scrum rules. Okay. Oh, interesting. A good thing for me. I focus a lot on the active things in the Scrum Master Startup Guide. Like active, what I mean is like practical day-to-day activities that a Scrum Master needs to do. I don't have a skills specific point like list. I do have it for the product owner, but it's actually a good addition. I should definitely add that to the Scrum Master Startup Guide, like a list of skills, more specifically, like a development plan, and especially since I already have that information. So yeah, as I said, knowing Scrum, facilitation, teaching, coaching would be like the top priority skills. And then another few things that I have in here. Let me also have this. One more thing that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, so this is kind of a small Scrum Master development guide, I can say, with some skills like bare minimum skills, core skills, progressive skills. I talk a lot about that in some of my top talks with in some meetups and stuff like that. Probably have one of those on my channel, not sure, but yeah. So just a few ideas and examples of the different skills that you might want to look into. Yeah, but I guess that kind of highlights the key ones in here. Yeah. Cool. And if there are any more questions, let me know. I'm just going back to some of the other topics we covered. So, by the way, if you are interested in like facilitation, more specific facilitation skills, there are a lot of different trainings and classes and courses that exist. And I think they can be very helpful in learning new techniques. The thing is that in order to really progress with your facilitation skills, you actually need to practice them actively. And that is the only way, to improve your facilitation skills, like by practice. There's nothing else you can do. So yes, you can go to different classes and learn new techniques, but then you need to practice them. I think the professional Scrum facilitation skills class has been pretty good because we had an opportunity to try it out. But once again, it's also just a one-day class. You don't have as much opportunity to test your skills. And the more you facilitate, the easier it will get. And it's going to be very painful at the beginning. You won't be able to really, really do a good job facilitating at the beginning. Good. I think that's kind of everything we covered. Well, obviously was much more. It was a full day class. I just spent 30 minutes talking a little bit about what we have covered. But it was a very useful class. And I think that especially if you are new to product backlog management, definitely kind of check it out because there are many different techniques that you can learn to help you with your product backlog management. Really, that's kind of what it comes down to in the end. No worries, Kim. Okay, we have another question or just a note. I have just got a PSM1 certification. I have close to 12 years of experience in sales and team management in banking. I'm now looking to change in career. So that's why I did my PSM. Do you suggest me to do? A PSPO. Oh, you mean like a certification? So I don't think it is necessary. Like, I don't think if you are going for the Scrum Master role, I don't think you have to have a PSPO certification. It can be helpful. I feel like it will be more helpful once you start working with an actual product owner. Because right now you already have some kind of that understanding of how the Scrum Master works with the product owner. Just having the certification, don't think it's that valuable on your resume. It's not as much of a differentiator. At least that's in my personal opinion. Obviously, that's what I think about it. PSM or CSM, I think, are kind of necessary in a way because that shows that you actually want to become a Scrum Master, especially if you don't have experience in it. But PSPO is just like an extra certification at this point. Yeah, I think a Scrum Master needs to know how to properly work with a product owner, 100%. But I don't think that you have to. Okay, my internet has been not working too well. Sorry, I'm seeing another message that it says that I'm offline. So hopefully the stream doesn't drop. But yeah, you definitely need to know how to work with the product owner. But right now, I'm not sure you have to have the certification. Focus on the skills, focus on your interviews, right? Focus on really understanding the role of a Scrum Master so that when you go into the interviews, you actually know how to answer the questions and you're also ready to take on a team, right? So if you get into a new team and probably you will be kind of given a free rein if you're joining if you're joining an organization that doesn't have anyone who can support you full time, right? Another agile person, another Scrum Master with experience, you will have to figure out a lot on your own. So make sure you actually know what to do. I think that's more important than a PSPO certification. Your G Maple is asking, do you have any videos on creating user stories? I don't think so, actually. No, I don't think I have any videos on the user stories. I have a few on the product backlog management. I do have a guide on the user stories that I'm going to, let me see if I can also pin it. Okay, so I put it, I pinned normally the writing user stories guide. So this I think is the only material I have on this topic. I don't really talk a lot about it specifically in videos, unless if someone knows if I have a video on user stories, please drop a link. But I don't think I have. I definitely have information and stuff on the product backlog. Let me see. I'm gonna go back to the 5 years of content. Product backlog. I have created a product backlog from scratch video. I'm gonna put a link in here. It can be helpful. I'm just showing a little bit about how I'm creating some of the items, but I have a little bit talking about the acceptance criteria. No, not exactly that. I don't think that this is exactly what you're looking for. But yeah, I think like the best resource I have is the workshop material on that. Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, I kind of covered everything that I really wanted to do in here in terms of the class. So, there are any last kind of questions that you guys want to ask, go ahead. Good point, by the way, on the skills for the Scrum Master. That is definitely something that I want to add into the Scrum Master Startup Guide. And I already have a lot of that material ready. So I think something that I'll work on to expand the guide. And we're also working on like a Scrum overview type of deal where we talk about like practical application of Scrum, and as well as like a wiki type of content that we can share. Oh, I see a couple of more questions in there. Cam is asking, how can a Scrum Master deal with a team that is offshore, especially when the time zone is different? Well, it is a pain. I wish I had a better time for you or explanation. Let me see. I actually do have sometimes I do have a video on this topic. So I'm sharing the remote teams, team building activities for remote teams and different time zones. So I offer a few things in there talking about what you can do to help the teams sync. But basically, depending on how wide the difference is, you definitely want to make sure that you have a daily touch point with them at a time that makes sense for all of them. Like, don't make a daily that makes someone join the call at like 10 p.m. or at 6 a.m. their time, because it's not going to work. And if there is no way that you can have like a normal hour for everyone on the team to connect to like a call for an hour, then you need to go back honestly to your management and talk about that your team will never be effective. If you can never meet at the same time, at a normal time, it's just you're wasting your company's money and time. And it's going to be 10 times slower to do whatever you want to do just because of this huge difference. I think it's fine to have a couple of hours of difference, but if the difference is like 12 hours, that's a problem. Like, you can't resolve it. You can make it a little bit better, but yeah, you'll never be able to really achieve good results. Silvanus Ejim, as always, pronouncing it all over, has a question. Is your publication on Jira enough for one to master Jira? You mean the class? I mean, I am going in the class, at the course, the online course, Jira for Scrum Masters. If that is what you mean, which I'll find right here. So in this class, I am going over the key kind of functionality and topics that you would need for learning Jira, for knowing exactly how to navigate it. You will still need to kind of figure out a bit how to make it work specifically for your team, right? So for example, if I am view course, let me share and view the course. Yeah, so kind of what are some of the things I'm talking about this class, must know Jira features, right? I am not going into the details of how to create an account, how to, navigate basic stuff. I am just showing you the exact features that I think you should know how to use, right? I have a little bit about basic navigation and creating your first project. I'm talking about hierarchy of issues. And in this part, I'm actually kind of going outside and explaining how different types of issues work together. Navigating the product backlog. We're talking about some shortcuts. I am sharing some shortcuts. I recently added 2 more lessons in here. So I'm talking about the active sprint tab that is used by all of the Scrum teams, how to close the sprints, how to get reports, what are the most important reports that you want, how to organize and structure a product backlog. I'm looking at different ways to do that. Filters, I'm touching a little bit on filters. So there are 2. One ones that are talking about filters, and filters are that SQL language that Jira uses so that you can find the issues inside. And this is an important skill to master because it can save you so much time and make your life so much easier, and also help you create dashboards and all of those different things that can help you customize your Jira board. So I'm not like going into like basic stuff of like how to create an account and everything like that, because that's not the goal of my tutorial here. It's really about showing you how to apply some of those knowledge. Some of that knowledge in Jira. So yeah. But that's the course that I have shared with some people who are kind of very new to Jira. They didn't know how to navigate it. And thanks to this course, they were able to understand how to do it, because I am sharing some quick tips on how to easily navigate it, right? And every lesson has a video, obviously, where I'm showing everything. And then I have like a transcript with the screenshots where I am explaining where to go, what to click, so that you always have a handy way or reference guide really for you. So yeah, like might not be a kind of tutorial that goes into basics, but it does cover the primary points. It also won't cover admin stuff like how to set up your projects, how to give permission to different people, how to configure your Jira instance. I'm not covering that because I don't think like a Scrum Master needs that. Usually you'll have someone who is the Jira admin. What you need is to know how to make it work for your team. That's what I'm covering in the course. And also, by the way, as I said, I added 2 new lessons to it. So if there's something missing, I am open to adding more lessons. So if the students come back to me and say, hey, I'm not sure how to do this, oh, you didn't cover this part, then I can always jump in and add new lessons. This is exactly how those 2 extra lessons were added, is because one of the students, I was talking to one of the students who had trouble with one other thing in Jira, and I thought, hey, I'm actually haven't covered that in the course, and so I decided to add an extra lesson. So that's kind of how I go about it, and obviously you can always ask me questions in there. And then we have DRG Maple workflow tips. What do you mean? What do you mean by workflow tips? I'm not sure what you mean by that. But do I have anything on the workflow? I talk a little bit about that in Kanban video, but I think I like really a little bit. Like, yeah, not anything specific to workflow, to be honest. Yeah, no, even the Kanban video is not really covering the workflow tips, but I'm not really sure what you mean by that in terms of the workflow tips, as in like how to set up Jira workflow. I talk about this a little bit in my Jira video. Yeah, so that's I'm talking about that in there. So maybe look into the one that I sent you, creating a product backlog from scratch. And in the same area, you have the sprint planning. And then I have another video on Jira, which is like covers some of the basic stuff, I guess, in Jira. I talk a little bit about the workflows. So So I guess that's where you can find that information. Yeah, okay, well, I am going to be closing off this stream. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, some good questions. It was a slower stream, but I really wanted to talk about this topic. So here you go. I talked about it, and I'll be probably doing another stream next week. And for that other stream, I will be talking about DevOps. So kind of using this as my guide. Definitely join this one if you want to learn more on what it is for non-techies, like from a non-technical perspective. I will be covering some of the technical aspects of this and kind of trying to make it easy to understand, I guess, and less technical. But yeah, so next live probably will be next week. Wait a minute. Yeah, because I think we won't be doing like a video, like a regular video next week. And so that's why I think I will be doing a live stream talking about DevOps and obviously answering any questions if you have any questions. So yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to be jumping off. Jumping off to go and have lunch because it is a lunchtime. And I'm going to send the link to the chat to answer the last question in the chat. I do offer mentorship. Link is in there in the chat. Anyway, I'm going to be closing off. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you in the next one, next Thursday, probably, around the same time as today. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining.